Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Candidate Forum for the San Mateo County Superintendent of Schools, sponsored and run by the South San Mateo County League of Women Voters. My name is Ellen Hope. I'm your moderator today. As you probably most of you know, the League is an organization of women and men which encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of public policy issues, and influences public policy through information and advocacy. The League never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. I was asked to make a couple of announcements before we start. I'd also like to introduce the rest of our League team. Georgia Jack is going to be keeping time for us, right there. Bernadette and Bernadette Burns at the back is going to be collecting white question cards, and someone's hopefully passing out white question cards. Great. And I'm sorry, your name is Paula. Hi, Paula. Thanks for coming. And Tracy over here is organizing everything. Sorry? And great. Very good. Thank you, Terry. That's super. I've been asked to announce voting in San Mateo County is changing for the June election. We're piloting the Voter Choice Act for the state, San Mateo and a few other counties. And this will go into effect for the June 5th election. Ballots will be mailed to every registered voter in early May. They begin to go out, I think, on May 7th, and will continue until May 27th, but the last of the time period is mostly reserved for people who didn't ask for a ballot until the last minute, I think. So expect your ballot early in the month. Voters can mail their ballot. They can drop it off in one of 29 ballot drop-off boxes located throughout the county, or take it to any of the county's 39 vote centers. If you would like some more information, there is a VCA table in the lobby. There are also handouts. One will tell you when this forum will be aired. There are voter registration forms, and there's information about the League. So this afternoon, each candidate, first, Nancy Magee, Gary Waddell. They're seated as they are because they drew numbers for seats. We do everything by a lottery. We're not like Vegas, but we try to be even-handed. Each candidate will make an opening statement of 3 minutes. The ground rules for the forum are as follows. Candidate responses should pertain to when we get to the questions. Candidate responses should pertain to the question at hand. The moderator may interrupt a candidate if she believes the candidate is straying from the subject. The moderator will enforce time limits in conjunction with our wonderful timekeeper. Candidates will not interrupt each other. Candidates will bring no visual aids to the forum. Campaign material may not be displayed within the forum room. I think we're up with all of those. So we will begin with opening statements from Nancy. You're first.
Okay. Test my microphone here.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me okay? No?
Okay, you have 3 minutes. Is it okay?
So many thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting the candidates today, and to all of you for being here. My name is Nancy Magee, and I've been serving the needs of youth all my life. In fact, I'm the only candidate in this race with significant experience as a classroom teacher. And I learned to teach on the pool deck. I grew up as a swimmer, and at 13, I started my own business as a swim instructor. And when you're teaching someone to swim, it's essential to create a sense of safety to get started and then build genuine trust. And when you're a swim instructor, success looks like an exuberant cannonball launched off the diving board. So I honed those skills, and I went on to become a successful high school teacher and teacher leader for 20 years. I am running for County Superintendent as a passionate advocate for all students, to support our educator workforce, to ensure our students get an excellent education and graduate with relevant skills. As County Superintendent, my top priorities are school safety, high-quality early learning, and expanding career and technical education. First is student safety. Physical and psychological safety are so important to the entire community. And under my collaborative leadership, our schools now rely on a common emergency plan supported by every law enforcement agency. This work has also improved the coordination of student mental health, produced a threat assessment process, and provided training in suicide prevention. And yet, it's still not enough. I am working to bring the student voice to the work by bringing Camp Lead, a social justice student leadership camp, to our county. Next is high-quality early learning. High-quality early learning is the most impactful way to close the achievement gap. I was one of the original collaborators on the Big Lift, our countywide initiative to have third graders reading proficiently by the third grade. I am committed to continuing this impactful work, which means securing sustainable funding, but high-quality early learning is a smart investment. Finally, we need to broaden the definition of success for our young people and expand more access to career education. We can start earlier and take students further. I want to support innovations like the Science Garage in South San Francisco, which is a brilliant partnership between the city, the school district, and industry. I invite you to join me in this vision. Let's work together to confidently launch every student from graduation into a successful future. Thank you.
There you go.
All right, thank you. Thank you, and thank you to the League for hosting us. It is an honor to be here. I've spent my career focused on equity and ensuring that we don't let any child fall through the cracks. I began with this simple idea that a county office of education, a county superintendent, can shift the equation throughout our county in ways that impact the lives of children. A little about me, I was a first-generation college student. I worked hard and put myself through school, earning 4 degrees along the process. I remember my mother telling me that in their life together, she saw my father cry twice. The first time when my grandfather passed away, and the second time when I walked across the stage to receive my doctorate in educational leadership. I tell you that to tell you that education and service are in my bones. They're who I am, and I wouldn't be before you today without the opportunities that education afforded me. And those are opportunities that I want every child in our community to have. This race is about the passions for the work. For me, those are grounded in equity, innovation, educating the whole child, arts and civics learning, and quality, affordable preschool for every child in our community. But it's also about more than that. It's about effectively leading our County Office of Education and the critical work before us. I come to that task with a unique set of experiences. I'm the only candidate in this race who sat in the seats of school counselor, or school principal, or deputy superintendent, or statewide curricular leader, or having served as a foster parent for children with special needs, a truly transformative experience for me. But perhaps it's the staff and leadership of the County Office of Education who know best what is needed to lead them in this critical work before us. That's a staff that knows us both well, which was why I'm particularly humbled to have been endorsed by 5 members of our Board of Education, 2 former county superintendents, our employee unions, including our teachers that teach in our student programs, our court and community and special education programs for my opponent. I take their trust in me very seriously, that we share a vision for what we can accomplish for our children and for how we should work together to get that work done. I've worked throughout my career with one notion, that the North Star of all of this work, of everything we do, is what is in the best interest of children. That's what gets me up in the morning. Sometimes it's what keeps me up at night. And it's the passion that has led me to this conversation and the passion that I will continue to hold through the superintendency. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. We have several questions up here already. You'll have 2 minutes to answer each of these. The first one is technological change. Artificial intelligence and robotics will displace workers and reduce some to the unstable gig economy. How will you prepare students for an uncertain future? Nancy, if you could start.
Sure. One of my priority platforms is about expanding career and technical education, and that's because I do believe that the world is changing quickly, that we need to prepare our students to live in a world that doesn't look like the 20th century. As I said, I support the innovations like the Science Garage in South San Francisco, where the Genentech, the school district, and the city of South San Francisco worked together to build a 21st century structure, a science lab, and the Genentech scientists come over and teach side by side with the teachers in the classroom. This is the kind of innovation that we need to lean into and develop in San Mateo County going forward. We need to be able to create opportunities for our students to see what that looks like to work in those seats, in those industries. We have, under my leadership, expanded our career and technical education department. We have developed smart teams of industry leaders in all the different pathways who are coming in often to share with us their ideas of what we need to be doing in our education system, and then we're matching that with where we can find a space in a school to pilot something or to get started. So we're already taking action in this way. I 100% support the work and that future. As county superintendent, we will continue to pursue the path of career and technical education.
Thank you. It's a really great question. You know, we live in the birthplace of the companies that are defining the 21st century. And while we have certainly spots of brilliance around our county in terms of leveraging those opportunities, those really haven't been taken to scale. And there's a huge opportunity before us to do that. You know, one of my primary priorities is world-class schools for every child. And for me, those are the schools that occur at the intersection of equity and innovation, where we're using innovation smartly to help us reach all of our kids, not some, not most, but every child who walks through our doors. I think we have a huge opportunity to leverage technology, not in ways that replace what the interaction that happens between teacher and child, but that deepen that interaction, that expand the walls of the classroom, that help our kids connect with others around the globe, and really do engage in activities and kinds of learning that they would have no opportunity to do before. The work that I've led at our Instructional Services Division has been really grounded in that kind of notion, that we can think differently about the work that we do. And it can't happen divorced from the work that happens between teacher and child, because in my view, everything else that we do are kind of barnacles on the side of that ship, but we can use technology in really powerful ways to deepen that conversation. And I believe we have a great opportunity to go to our partners in our tech sector here. And I say sometimes, I think when we go to them with open minds instead of just open hands, it changes the conversation, and that's the opportunity before us today.
Thank you both. I have a second question here. Gary, you'll start this one. What are your objectives for students with developmental disabilities, and what are you doing to promote special ed services?
Thank you. Much of my career has been focused on the needs of diverse learners. I began my career as a school counselor, where I worked on assisting in pre-referral teams. I was a foster parent for adolescents with special needs. So it is a critical need before us. In my view, we have to create better partnerships that really are focused on this North Star of what is in the best interest of our children. I think we have some great models, again, in our county, and yet we could do better. When we let any child fall through those cracks, that's not okay. In terms of our capacity as a county office of education to really engage there, we work closely with our SELPA, we work closely with our districts to provide quality service, to think about the kinds of programs and services that we need to offer for those children that we're not serving. If we sometimes think of education as an equation and then there's a remainder, and I always am worried about those children that we haven't been serving well. And what we can do really to engage ourselves, to think differently about our practice, to support children with developmental disabilities, to support autistic children, to support children with severe behavioral disorders, which were the kind that I had in foster care. And I learned from that experience that it is about partnerships. It's about us all coming together. If we go to our silos and separate corners, then we really, we're not serving kids well.
In 2015, there was a statewide special education task force report that came out to guide the direction of special education for the state. In that report, the idea was that we should have one education system, a system for children. And that should be focused and based in a general education system in which children's individual needs are met. That is the goal that I see for special education going forward. We're very far away from that right now. But my background, in my background, I was a high school teacher, and part of my time I was working in a fully inclusive high school. I was a general education teacher, working with students with severe disabilities inside my classroom. I understand the mindset and the attitude that you need to adopt in order to make that be successful. I was so successful that I actually went out and trained nationally other teachers in how to provide effective inclusive education in the general education setting. Now in my role, as Associate Superintendent, I do oversee the special education programs for the County Office of Education. We serve those students whose needs are most severe and those children for who cannot be well served in their school districts. Our goal is to try and develop those students with our expert staff to the point where they can return to their home school districts and go to school with their neighbors and their brothers and sisters. For those students who need to be served in a specialized setting, we are providing innovative, forward-thinking work. We're adopting a multi-tiered system of support, pursuing a multi-tiered system of support grant at the state in order to improve our system of special education delivery and develop an accountability system that helps us keep track of how well we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you both. Nancy, you'll also start this next question. What are your thoughts on charter schools? What roles should they play?
I think charter schools have an important place in the ecosystem of our education. We have to be very careful because San Mateo County is small and our school districts are very small. So there's a saturation level at which we can maintain the right balance, just like an ecosystem works. Charter schools were originally initiated to provide and push innovation in all of our education system. What I see lacking in that is a strong relationship between the charter schools and the traditional schools in order to actually help each other and grow so that all children can benefit. Again, as Associate Superintendent, I oversee the court and community schools, and we have been partnering with Summit Charter School since for 3 years now on how to bring and adopt personalized learning and technology into the incarcerated environment. Summit Charter has been very supportive in our efforts. They provided high quality professional development at no charge. They are a great partner in helping us think differently. Are we going to turn our schools into charter schools? No, we're not. But we are learning from them, and I think it's a great model of what charter schools are intended to do. I attended an event this morning, Innovate Education, for charter school population, and it was an incredibly diverse audience. Oftentimes I go around San Mateo County and don't see that kind of diversity. We need to be able to serve the needs of all of our children well, and the charter schools, if they can do that with the engagement of their parents and communities, then that's a good thing. We want to be able to support them, but we also want to be mindful of maintaining the health of our public school system so that every school district and every school can thrive and serve its students.
Thank you. So, you know, if we go back to the intent of the charter legislation, it was to encourage innovation in our schools and to help us think differently, think outside the box, and create different models that would help us reach the kids that we weren't effectively reaching. And I think when charters do that well, then they serve a great purpose. But we also, frankly, have charters that don't do that well. If we're really talking about innovation, if we're really talking about school choice, both of those are good things, and they're things that I stand for. But I don't think those are exclusively the purview of the charter system. I have seen dynamic models of how we create choice and how we create innovation and how we really foment innovation in public schools. And I think that gets me very excited. You know, we have much of this conversation is a resource conversation. We have 23 districts in San Mateo County serving 95,000 students. And that presents some real challenges in terms of resources. We're also funded 46th in the nation, if you go by the EdSource study, in per pupil funding, and that's really not acceptable. We wouldn't be having this conversation if schools had sufficient resources to do the work that they needed to do, and many of our districts in San Mateo County do not, and that's a huge priority. So working on that, working on innovation, working on choice within systems and cross-articulating between these systems, I think there's our opportunity, and we don't have to be at cross purposes. I think that can all be part of a system that we design in the best interest of children.
Thank you. You'll start this next question. What are your plans to retain quality teachers, especially in relationship to the high cost of housing and the fact that the cost of living in San Mateo County is 40% higher than the California average?
Thank you for that question. Boy, it's a challenge. It's one we've been struggling with for some time. I mean, we were recently looking at some data. There was no house on the market in this county that a teacher on a teacher salary could afford. We've been working for a couple of years with this teacher pipeline group. So we've been meeting with representatives from San Francisco State and Skyline and Kenyatta and Notre Dame, looking at how we can create different pathways into the profession. So we think of the traditional model that many of us grew up with, where you finish high school and you go to college for 4 years and then you're done with that and you go into the workforce, really isn't a relevant model anymore, and certainly not in a county that has the cost of living that we have. And we have many students that spend many years earning their higher education because they're working at the same time or working multiple jobs and doing that. We have to make that easier, and that's about partnerships as well. The other dynamic piece of that that's been really exciting is we've been looking at mid-career changers. So are there classified staff, paraeducators, and those sorts of folks who we can provide assistance to go back and get their credential? These are people already working in our classrooms, and our hardest to fill classrooms oftentimes are special education. And so we've implemented in the last couple of years an exciting program where those folks are working in the evenings in the cohort to get their teaching credential. So I think we have to think outside the box in terms of this conversation. You know, one of the solutions some districts are grappling with or is providing teacher housing, and that is one solution. It is not the only one, and I think we have to have all of these options on the table and be willing to come together and kind of set aside our preconceived notions and think about what we can do in the interest of our kids.
I think this is a two-pronged problem, and it's unique to San Mateo County. The state of California has a teacher shortage. In fact, the nation has a teacher shortage, as does San Mateo County. But the housing in San Mateo County is really a serious crisis I spoke to a colleague the other day in another agency who came to me to say, I am really, really concerned. I just lost 2 very good people who are moving out of the area because they cannot afford to live here. I, in my own work, have lost several very quality teachers and administrators who can no longer afford to live in the county. So we have a 2-pronged problem here. As far as the housing goes, I do think we have local partners that would be really happy to work with us to help get provide some short-term solutions for teachers. One of those groups would be our realtors. I think they have a great interest in trying to support strong schools in our communities, and the core of strong schools is good teachers. So providing some sort of network for teacher housing where a teacher coming from out of the area doesn't know, where they might live, might be well served by such a network. As far as the teacher shortage goes, we need to look at barriers to credentialing at the state and work with our legislators. We need to start engaging youth earlier in our career outreach about the value of education and the amazing rewards that it provides as a career. And finally, I think we really need to look at developing educator wellness programs, because there's more to retaining teachers than a salary, but we need to address their everyday health needs. It's a very stressful career, and that would be one way to address it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. You will also get to start this one. There's a strong movement in the Belhaven neighborhood of Menlo Park to move out of the Ravenswood School District and into the Menlo Park School District. What is the role of the superintendent to ensure high-quality education to all students in San Mateo County? And connected to that, what needs to happen to get Ravenswood onto a strong financial footing? What can you do to support this as superintendent?
Well, we, as the county superintendent, is working very closely right now with the Ravenswood School District to help guide them in their decision-making as far as their budget process goes, as well as providing support to keep their early childhood education center open and running. So the county superintendent is actually exemplifying exactly how a county office would go in and support a district that's stressed in such a way. As far as the boundary issues of the Belhaven neighborhood, I actually led the county committee on school district organization for 4 years and know that work very well, guiding school citizens who want to petition to change school district boundaries. It's a community process. You have to be able, as a county superintendent, to address the needs of the citizen petitioners, all the school districts who are involved, and all of the community members. It ultimately involves the voters as well. So being able to provide a solid, responsible, transparent process is very important in that work. As far as addressing the needs of supporting a school district who might be struggling, the County Office of Education, that's our goal, is to serve our students across the county equitably and to see them be successful. I believe that the county office can be more personal in its approach to various school districts. Not all school districts need the same thing. That we can look more closely at the ways in which a school district on the coast side needs support versus a school district in the North County. Right now, we're a little bit bureaucratic in our approach in a one-size-fits-all. This is what we do, but I think if we're truly providing equity in San Mateo County, we can personalize the way we serve the needs of our districts.
So I'd approach this question from a couple of vantage points. The first is thinking about the role of the county superintendent of schools. And that role certainly is not to make those local decisions for local communities. California has really stresses in our statewide structures local decision-making and local control, and that's really important because we want to make decisions in the context of local communities. So having said that, those kinds of decisions, while they're community decisions, I think the county superintendent of schools has a unique role and opportunity to serve as a facilitator, to serve as a provider of resources and information and conversations, and to lead some of those conversations moving forward. The county superintendent also has a couple of statutory obligations, and one of those is called AB 1200, and that's our budget oversight. And though that is a place where we get directly involved with districts in terms of qualifying their budgets, ensuring that they have positive budgets, and assisting them if there are issues there. A couple of programs in my division have been working specifically with the Ravenswood district. One of those is our differentiated assistance, which is the newest model of the local control funding formula system, and we've been basing that work in improvement science, which really is trying to get there deep in with the district and help them to move their programming forward in ways that are impactful for children. I also oversee our early learning support services team that has worked diligently to find these solutions for the Child Development Center in Ravenswood so that the children don't have gap or have a minimized gap in service and have a new provider that's going to come in. That provider was just announced last week, so that the bottom line is those child care spaces are still provided to children in that community.
Thank you both. The next question is, how can we better deal with our immigrant students who are unsure of their future here?
Thank you. This is an area of great passion for me. You know, when I say my work is around equity, that kind of has become a catchphrase, but it really means those children that we're not serving well. And I think our immigrant students are really at the top of that list. We have children and families living daily with fear of deportation, not to mention the other stressors of our community, the housing crisis and those sorts of things. We have to work as a community to provide resources to them. I was recently on the coast side and did the farm tour in Puente in Pescadero, and was really moved by the power of the work that Puente is doing. And part of that work is also providing some advice and guidance for immigrant populations. It is work that we have to do. It's not right what we've done with DACA students and Dreamers. The promises that we made to those children and those families are promises that we need to uphold. And I believe that the county superintendent, while a local voice, it's critical for that voice to be in that conversation and in that debate and representing the needs and interests of all the residents of San Mateo County, immigrants, undocumented immigrants included.
I think we begin by being culturally responsive in all of our work at the County Office of Education. That means that when we put out information, that we're thoughtful about the languages that we're accessing out to our communities, that people can access the resources that we offer in their home languages. Secondly, we work with our superintendents to help guide them in how they're supporting the mental health and safety concerns of their students. I've led the work in school safety and mental health support across the county. And this last year, we've developed a communication system with our superintendents when there is a particular urgent crisis or a protest or something to organize or be prepared for. We work as a team to develop what that plan looks like, and then we get that out to our superintendents, and we're available to them 24 hours a day, cell phone, whatever is required, to make sure that everybody is ready for the community action that could happen. Again, as a person who's running schools, we've had students who do not come to school because their parents are afraid to leave their homes. We have school nurses, we have school psychologists who go out on home visits to try and support those families and see what kinds of supports they need. With strong partnerships and working together, we can definitely provide the kinds of supports that our families need in this really terrible and dangerous time for them.
All right, the next question is, and I think I'll check the time in a minute. Tracy, what time are we scheduled to finish? 4:30-ish? Okay. Well, we'll have room for maybe 2 or possibly 3 more questions, followed by closing statements from both candidates. This question is, what are you doing to ensure safe schools for special ed students? For example, by training bus drivers with a defined protocol, and training to help keep students with severe disabilities safe, and also with regard to the non-integrated special ed site next to YouTube. Yours first. Yes.
Thank you. So we do run the County Office of Education Special Education Program, and so I can speak to that in a minute. But as far as what we're doing for special education students across the county and Safe Schools, I led the work to develop the Big Five, which is the common emergency plan for all schools. If you look into that document, there's training specific to supporting the needs of special education students in a school emergency. We provide trainings all year long. We probably train about 400 school staff a year at the county office and then go out to school sites in addition to help them understand the various needs of populations in a school emergency. We've also trained different facilities and bus driver groups in this protocol. Maybe 2 weeks ago, we were out in Cabrillo Unified meeting with their entire facilities staff in that work. As far as supporting the needs of students in our own schools, our teachers and administrators also participate in our trainings. We make sure that we are doing drills. We are trying to upgrade our facilities right now to include the appropriate interior locks that should be on all the doors. We are using very 1950s buildings, and the current climate has really raised the level of urgency to get that work completed. So we're in the process of upgrading our facilities, making sure our staff is trained and utilizing their drills and working with their community partners to make sure that everyone is aware that we are a school in a community with students with special needs.
I'd like to answer this question with a very short story. And the first foster child I had, and this was some years ago, his name was a young man named Jared. And I met Jared at a child psychiatric hospital. It was his 5th such placement. He had been in 10 foster homes and as many group homes, and he was 10 years old. Jared had severe behavioral and emotional challenges, and we worked very hard. He was with me for 2 years to try to make his schools a place where he could grow and he could learn, and that they understood how to deal with the challenges that were challenges from this life that this child had lived that no one should ever have had to live. What I learned from that process is that partnerships are what matters. Coming together, the community, from mental health providers, social workers, the school, the foster parent, community agencies, when we all work together, that's where things begin to shift and change for him. You know, in our county, I think our challenge is providing the resources that we need to provide. It's not a mystery, the kinds of mental health supports and services that our children need, but resources are often the challenge. The short-term answer for that is that we have to be more aggressive in terms of building partnerships, coming together with our mental health providers, our other providers in the community, and looking for ways to partner. Our longer-term fix is a resource conversation, and that is a conversation that we need to have, that the county superintendent has an obligation to have at the state level. We really have to change that system for funding our schools, and special education often gets the short end of that stick as well, if we really want to shift this conversation long term. So I think we have to deal with both the short-term solutions and have a long-term view as well if we're going to make a difference for our kids.
Thanks. My boss has just reminded me that this was billed as 3:30 to 5 o'clock. And we can continue with questions if we have enough questions. And we certainly have enough questions. So I will plan to continue with these very good questions and these very good answers until approximately 4:45, which should give the candidates time for their closing statements and a brief coda at the end. So the next question is, what is your plan to increase public-private cooperation to close the funding gaps?
It's a great question. You've heard that. That's really front of mind for me, as you've heard. So I would approach that from a couple of viewpoints. And again, I would go back to the short-term solution and long-term view conversation. There are short-term ways. You can look at a model of work that really began in my division, which is the Big Lift, which is a great model of a public partnership, the County Office of Education, the Board of Supervisors, the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, as well as hundreds of community partners that have come together to make this work. And it's taking a lot of resources and a lot of energy and a lot of imagination, and we're not there yet. We still need more resources. And I still say that the answer for these is a structural change in how we fund schools. I've had the good fortune of serving as a principal in a state that was funded much higher than California, and then coming to be a principal of a school of the same size in California, and the differences in the support staff that you could have, and the opportunities for arts learning and for social emotional learning and for reading support, and to give teachers an opportunity to pull small groups of children was drastic. And that's what resources will do. It will help us better reach all of our kids. So there's an obligation to have that conversation and the unique needs. You know, this is California-wide, but San Mateo County, where our cost of living is so high, it's much more pronounced here. So we have even less capacity in San Mateo County to provide the programs and services that our kids need. So I would, again, say it's short-term strategies right now about partnerships and long-term solutions in terms of legislative fixes.
This is a great conversation for our local solutions to equity in San Mateo County, because we have great wealth and success in this county in our private industry. Obviously the tech industry, the biotech industry is thriving and is the center of the world in these industries. So the problem is how to get them on board in being a partner with us in education. And while that has always been a difficult deal to close, let's say. I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman who worked on the original idea to build or to design DTech, which is a school in San Mateo Union, which started out as a magnet school it wanted to start, and then it ended up becoming a charter school based on various complications. But that school, it went out into the community in a very sort of ordinary setting, and what they worked on was the guts of that program. And they built a strong instructional program for students that changed the way kids engaged in learning, exactly to the first question that we talked about, which is how do we prepare kids for the future? DTech is a great example of how that happens. What they didn't anticipate when they started that program was that Oracle would come on board with a $49 million building, and that's now what's happened. So I think in industry we know that you're not going to make a business deal until they can actually see that there's going to be a return on investment on the other end. So we've got to do our part in building strong instructional programs and going ahead and challenging, pushing ourselves to pilot those things, and then bringing industry on board once they can see that we've got something that's worth investing in. So I think it's a great space for us to lean into in this county, and there's a lot of room for that. Thank you.
Oh, okay, this next question circles back to the discussion of cost of living again. What would you do to get cost of living into the LCFF, which is the local control funding formula for those of us who are not totally on top of all the acronyms? Or why would you not want to do that? And what do you think about folding special education into the LCFF? Yeah.
Absolutely, special education should be a part of our local control accountability plan. When it was rolled out from the state several years ago, for some reason, special education was left out of the conversation. The local accountability plan is really a school district's instructional vision for how they intend to serve all students. To leave special education students out of that does not make any sense, and I believe that we should work with our legislators and our State Board of Education to make that happen as we move forward. In the County Office of Education programs, I did say that we are pursuing a multi-tiered system of support grant in order to do just that. We're not required to do that, but we are going to pursue that grant in order to develop our own local accountability plan for our special education program. Trying to remember the first part of the question because I answered the second part. Could you remind me?
The first part was reflecting cost of living into the LCFF.
Oh, okay. So in San Mateo County, we actually have, we are funded, the County Office of Education is funded through property taxes, and we actually have excess property taxes that we are required to hand back to the state to fund our court system. There's something that's backwards about that, why education would take funds and hand it over to the court system, when if we could use those funds and access those funds to serve our kids educationally, we wouldn't need it for the court system. That is a conversation that our board members have been having for many years. It is unique to San Mateo County because we are a high, property value county.
Thank you. So in 2014, I was the chair of the Curriculum Instruction Steering Committee for California. That's a group that works with all 58 county offices in all content areas with the State Board of Education and the California Department of Education to implement education policy. So 2014 was also the year that LCFF, the local control funding formula, came into play. So I had the opportunity to be really right at the table as many of those systems were developed and what that looks like. And that began, if you remember, a couple of years before that, there was weighted student formula that didn't go through. And so local control funding formula was an attempt to shift that. And the idea of it was that it would designate resources more heavily for districts that had higher numbers of students who were living in poverty and English learners and that fit a number of categories. And I think it made it has had some promise in those areas. The challenges with it have also been many. We are still, the target of LCFF, the target of all of that is really to get us back to 07, 08 funding levels. So really we're trying to just redistribute a pie that's woefully insufficient to meet the needs of our kids and our districts today. There are a lot of variables that go into that. When we look at our local control accountability plan, which is the next piece to go into play, districts are tasked with this mission of looking at 8 state priorities, there are 10 for the county, and really trying to analyze their programming and ensure that they're using those resources as well as they can. But I still go back, you'll hear me returning to this theme that we have insufficient resources for our districts. When our CBO and I look at our district budgets and sign those LCAP approval letters, we still see many districts that are struggling mightily with to provide the services that they need for their children.
Okay. How would you encourage dual enrollment for high school students taking college courses?
Thank you. That's a really exciting question. It was a topic at our recent teacher pipeline meeting, and we're really blessed with a strong community college system here in San Mateo County, and that plays a critical role, particularly for some of those reasons that I was discussing earlier, for our kids that need options, that may have to work but also need higher education pathways. And dual enrollment is a great model for how to get kids who are in high school also earning college credit. We have some great models throughout our county. Our community college districts are expanding those models. One of the areas that's really exciting in that space is to think about our early learning staff. You know, those teachers and staff that are going into our preschools, you know, they make that's another issue, but they make so little money and they need credentials, they need the right certification to be able to enter those professions. And early learning and early dual enrollment is a great opportunity for them to begin to explore that when they're in high school. So I really kudos go to our community college district that is a key part of our higher education system in San Mateo County, and they are really pushing the envelope and working as partners with the County Office of Education to expand that space.
I believe our community colleges are a great treasure, again, in San Mateo County, and that we should be accessing them to our fullest ability, partnering with them from K-12 education with the community college. A lot of this is already happening. We have many of our high school districts have a middle college program where students have the option to attend school at the college campus itself and earn dual credit for high school courses and college courses. When they complete middle college, they will have completed at least 1 year of community college credit. Another example in the county is the new school being built, the small school being built in Sequoia Union High School District, which is, I don't know the name of it right this minute, but it is, I know the goal of it is to partner with the community college directly, and that they're negotiating with the college labor groups to be able to bring take those kids up to the college campuses and be earning dual credit. The other innovative program that's going on in the county right now is Cabrillo Unified School District. Dr. Jane Euster is working with the community college district to develop a 5-year program for their graduates in the Cabrillo district, where students, again, will take college courses, earn high school credit, and college credit for that. And then I also want to make sure that I mention that in our Court and Community School, we bring college teachers into the juvenile hall. They teach a course called Keys to Success. Our students in juvenile hall get enrolled in college. They earn college credit. And then when they exit the system, our goal is to get them enrolled at the college level, where they participate in Project Change, which is a support program there for them.
The next question is, how would you deal with teachers who are in specialized fields, such as dealing with autistic students, and whose classes are eliminated? Is there a retraining program available for them to change specialties? Should there be one?
Well, for many of the specialized teachers that work in the county, they're employed by the County Office of Education through our Related Services Division. So we supply audiologists, speech and language pathologists, teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, teachers of the visually impaired, orientation and mobility teachers. And we have a very strong program at the County Office of Education for these teachers because they have a cadre of professional colleagues that they can work with and train with and go through, develop their skills together. So it's really very difficult to get some of these specialized teachers hired. So I'm not sure about the exact question, but if it was about a position that wasn't being utilized anymore in a school district, and how would you retrain that teacher? Absolutely, we have a teacher shortage, and we are developing our own teacher credentialing programs, or exploring that at the County Office of Education. One area that I'm very interested in exploring is school nurses. That's an area that we see our school districts do not hire school nurses and are using contractors, which might not be a school nurse but an RN, and not serving the students and the youth in the same way that a school nurse would serve their needs. This is one of those areas where we have a great team of school nurses that we could, at the County Office of Education, provide real leadership in this way and develop real equity for those students whose needs are not being met in this health and wellness way in their districts. But I would like to see that turn into a training program for school nurses, because there's not very many programs in the state that actually credential school nurses anymore. So looking at those areas where we could really provide great value, not only to our own districts, but possibly to our teachers and their future careers.
Well, I would agree with my opponent that that there is a huge shortage of special education teachers in our county, really in our country, in our state, and particularly in this county. You know, we have taken a few approaches. The division that I've had the great good fortune to lead for the last 11 years is our Instructional Services Division, where we do teacher training, we do administrator training and credentialing, and we are exploring moving that conversation to teacher programs as well. You know, in terms of cross-training, I think that is a great opportunity. As a principal, I was always struck with the power, and many times a teacher would come to me who'd been teaching the same grade level or the same content area for many years, and they wanted to explore have a different opportunity or experience, or have a different kind of training. And that was really dynamic. Special education teachers who moved into general education teachers, a third grade teacher, an eighth grade teacher, who would go back and get credentialed and teach in special education. They bring much more to the conversation then. Really the heart of this question for me is about how we support our staff. And we have a huge obligation to do that, to support not only what's happening for them on a daily basis, but the trajectory of their career, and from mentorships when they are just beginning, to resources that they need and opportunities for them to learn and grow and ultimately be more effective for more kids.
Climate change is actually creating a habitability crisis. Weather events are destroying or severely damaging homes and businesses. Can we prepare students for construction and other vocational occupations? Are we currently doing this, or how do you propose it be done?
Wow, okay, good question. So let me come to that from two places. The first place I started was about climate change and how important it is that we're engaged in good, deep, quality, evidence-based science instruction. And we've been doing that. We have a new science framework in California called the Next Generation Science Standards, and it's really exciting to see kids really interacting with that and being hands-on and doing that kind of work. In terms of how we're preparing kids for what comes next for them, you know, we had older models of vocational education, and today we call that career technical education, and those can be exciting opportunities. But we also know that career interest really stabilizes in the mid-20s to 30s typically. So preparing children for one career when they're in high school may help them for a couple of years, but really isn't what they need long term. So exposing them to a lot of opportunities, really preparing them to be flexible, to have the kind of understanding and capacity to learn throughout the lifespan. I mean, how many of us are in jobs or were in jobs that are the same thing that we started out at? So I think having strong career technical education programs is an important piece of that, as well as doubling down on our science education. So we're sure that we're preparing children to be the leaders of tomorrow and our scientists and thinkers.
So climate change, again, specifically impacts San Mateo County with the question about sea level rise. It's something that's should be a great concern for our county and provides a great opportunity for students to really apply their next generation science standards learning to real world application that's in their own backyard. So I see great opportunities for students to really engage and become the scientists of tomorrow who can help create the solutions that we need to avoid the challenges that lie ahead in that way. As far as the question about how can we focus kids into careers that have to do with the trades, we are working in our career and technical education department with the Building and Trades Union. They have a 2-year apprenticeship program where they're actually full right now with a waiting list. So we just had them at the County Office of Education yesterday, meeting with a group of about 30 school counselors from across districts in the county, sharing their program, how to get kids engaged in that, and especially how to talk about how they can grow and expand their services to meet the needs of more students. So we're working directly with that group in order to help guide students into those hands-on technical education field and give them those opportunities.
Well, we have a few more questions here. What are you doing to connect with the community?
When I came to the County Office of Education, I came as the School Library Services Coordinator, so my role really was to serve all the school libraries in all the districts across the county. Right off the bat, I went around and certainly met all the librarians and all the library staff in our districts, but equally with all the public libraries and library staff. So we developed a great partnership. We, right off the bat, jumped in on the One Book, One County program that we had, and we also were able to add a program called Library Links for Education, which is where we provided free access to the public library databases for all school students in schools in San Mateo County. That was a partnership that I worked on before I moved into the county superintendent's office as the administrator in that office. I didn't last long in the school library services job because I moved over to the superintendent's office. And my role there was as public information officer and community relations. It was at that time, not long after, that the Newtown tragedy happened, and our elected officials came forward to the county office asking how we can make our schools safer in San Mateo County. I had experience in this way and brought in our partners in law enforcement, county counsel's office, the district attorney, behavioral health, our health system, et cetera. And we actually formed the Coalition for Safe Schools and Communities, which has now developed multiple protocols for safety for students across the county. All of that has been dependent on the partnerships. I sit as the steering chair for the Coalition for Safe Schools and Communities. I'm kind of the catalyst to hold all those partners together, and we've had great success.
So I want to take this from a couple of vantage points. So I really started this process of this campaign that was a very new experience for me, probably a year and a half ago. And in that time, I have had the great honor of talking with hundreds of individuals individually across our county. I've been endorsed by over 250 of them. But what I've learned from that is there are many, many perspectives about what matters, what we need to be doing to change things for our kids, but everyone really comes to those conversations with something to add from their own perspective. And this job is about bringing that together and creating spaces where we hear and honor that. We've taken a new approach to some of the work that I've been leading in our instructional services division, particularly in the area of civics education, so critical these days when our shared values are under assault, and arts education as well. That's a huge passion for me, and I'm fortunate to be able to chair the statewide arts committee. We've taken a community-based advisory approach to both of those initiatives, as well as environmental education. And that's been a unique way that we've worked together, but bringing together partners from the community, bringing together representatives from districts, experts with particular interests, as well as people that are just interested in participating in those kinds of conversations. One of the things I've learned over this past couple of years is how really diverse our county is. I was sharing my experiences in Pescadero, but when you think about the time I've spent in Pescadero, in Daly City, in Redwood City, in East Palo Alto, and throughout our community, those communities all have great histories and great priorities, things that they are passionate about, things that they are top of mind for them that we address. And I think from a county-wide perspective, our obligation is to listen, to create the spaces where those perspectives can come and we can create solutions that work for us.
What are your thoughts about the perceived path for principals up to district or up, in quotes, up to district or up to county? How many jobs in the county office are there?
Thank you. So I'm really excited about that work. You know, I told you my doctorate is in educational leadership. So leadership has always been a passion for me. And the function of the leader is absolutely critical. It's not that they do everything, but having a facilitative kind of leader that knows how to bring together people with often different ideas and to create better solutions is really powerful. I launched some years ago when I first came to the county office, our administrator credentialing program. And that is a program that has grown and grown and grown. There are 2 levels of that model in California. There's what's called Tier 1 and then Tier 2 when you actually have the job. And we now engage in both of those levels of work. And it's really exciting to see the passion around people that come and want to pursue an administrative career. And not that we want to take all the best people out of the classroom, but sometimes people really want to pursue that leadership function. And we've grounded that work in equity and really thinking about what is the moral imperative for leaders? What kinds of skills do you need to be a leader? What kinds of sensibilities, what kind of research do you need to be familiar with? So that's really exciting. I take very seriously also, I've hired hundreds of managers at the County Office of Education in my 11 years there, and I take that very seriously as well, looking for smart people that have children at heart and that are about that work and come to the work with from a collaborative stance.
As someone who's currently running schools, essentially the 24th superintendent, I answer to the county superintendent, not an elected board, but nonetheless hiring principals, hiring teachers, supporting and hiring paraeducators, all of our office staff. Our goal is to maximize everybody's potential and have them reach their goals of their own individual career path. So when we have teachers who express an interest in leadership, we try to encourage them to move into different programs and trainings that will give them that opportunity. We have head teachers in our schools. They get lots of opportunities to take charge of things. Again, we have many teachers who are participating in our teacher credentialing program and our administrator support program, so we support their work. I think that it's important. Actually, I've seen our teachers who go on and leave us oftentimes because they're looking to grow. Again, that is a positive experience where we try to, we hate to see good people leave us, but we know that we provided them a strong foundation for how to be a leader out in the community, and we see it as another resource to all of our school districts. For instance, I was just at the ESET 2 conference, which is for a celebration of teachers, and we had maybe 5 or 6 teachers who had been in our County Office of Education special ed programs who had gone through administrator training and leadership work, and they'd all gone on to leadership positions. They were actually running this whole event. They were all the ones who were in charge. So it was really satisfying to see that we're providing opportunities for our education workforce to go out and be leaders in our schools.
All right, one more question, and then we'll go to closing statements from the candidates. What do you think will be the 3 greatest challenges facing K-12 education in San Mateo County in the next 10 years?
The teacher shortage is enormous, and it is coupled again by being able to live in our community. It's not just about teachers, it's about all people who work in our schools. It's also about the partners who live in our community and support our youth. So we work closely with probation, for instance, and these middle income jobs are at risk for those people to be able to stay in our communities. We need to develop solutions for that problem, because when our teachers are commuting an hour, 2 hours each way to work, they're draining themselves of good energy that should be being applied to their own creative efforts in their work. So the teacher shortage in general for the state, our housing costs are enormously challenging and of great concern. I would say that trying to meet the needs of all students is our second challenge in a very traditional system that's very slow to change. We need transformational change in our schools. We need to be able to help our teachers transition into a model where students take the onus, take more ownership of their learning, where teachers step in and act more as coaches and mentors, that personalized learning approach is the way to prepare our students for the future. That kind of shift of paradigm is really challenging to take on, but I deeply believe that it's important. And I think that if you take early adopters and people who are willing to lean into change, you can get there.
So I would start with some work that's been a passion of mine throughout my career, and that's closing the achievement and opportunity gaps. As a principal, I really saw that work is possible. It's not easy, but it's possible when we all have a common view, and when we come every day and say we're going to do whatever it takes to make a difference for kids. I started our Zap the Gap Achievement Gap Summit 10 years ago, and this March we had our 10th anniversary celebration, and it was a great moment for the community to come together and think around that space. But our gaps aren't getting any narrower, and we can do that, and we must do that in order for the kids who are at the losing end of that gap. And it is also an opportunity gap, which is about resource, and that leads me to the second area, and that area is funding adequacy. We are still reeling with the impact of Prop 13 in our state. California schools used to be some of the best funded per pupil in the country, and now we're very near the bottom, and that's not okay. We can do better, and we must do better if we're going to really change some of the systems that we're talking about. I think the last one would kind of be around teachers, and part of that is the teacher shortage, and part of that is our commitment and our vision to innovative types and models of schooling. We really have to be flexible. You know, we're living in an age where there's information that's flowing very quickly, where we're preparing our kids for a world we can hardly yet imagine. And so we have to be nimble in that approach, and we have to think about new ways of interacting with kids, implementing technologies and helping them deepen their learning, their connections with each other, and with us, if we're really going to change the world, which I think is ultimately what all this is about.
Gary, could you begin with your closing statement, please?
I'd be happy to. Thank you first to the League and for all of you for coming, and to Nancy. I said we're going to go on the road, I think, after this is all over. I come to this conversation with this simple belief that a county office and a county superintendent can change things for kids. And I can promise you that I wouldn't be going through all that this entails if I didn't hold that belief at heart. You know, in the course of this race, as I mentioned, I've had the great good fortune to interact with literally hundreds of people. And every one of them has brought a unique perspective. Those are people like Sarahi Salamanca Espinoza. Sarahi was a DACA student and a dreamer who ended up doing phenomenal things and creating an app that helps other students, but we made it harder for her than we needed to. She shouldn't have lived in fear every day. She shouldn't have been separated from her mother when she was 16 years old. You know, the decisions that we make and our willingness to stand up for what's right, not what's easy, is what this is all about, in my view. We're at a critical moment in our country's history when our values are under attack. Your choice in this race is consequential. The county superintendent isn't a figurehead position. This is a role that oversees budgets of 23 districts, a staff of over 450 people, and a $90 million annual budget. You know, I'm proud to stand with our teachers and with our paraeducators and with 5 of our board members. I'm proud to stand with California Teachers Association of San Mateo County, who have endorsed me. With our labor community, the San Mateo Central Labor Council, who supported me, as well as Congresswoman Jackie Spear, Anna Eshoo, Kevin Mullen, Mark Berman, Phil Ting, Scott Wiener. These are not people that I really knew very well before all of this, but they're people that I've had opportunities to have conversations with, and we share a common vision for what's possible in our county, and that's what this is about at the end of the day for me. My allegiance isn't to all of those people that I mentioned. While I value their perspective and the relationships that we have, my allegiance is to our children. It's why I do this work. It's what I'm about. It's what I've been about throughout my career. Every decision that I've made about a different position that I pursued was because I could be of more service to those children that we face every day. So thank you.
Thank you. Nancy.
So my career experiences tell the story of who I am as an individual and not just what I've done. Starting at the age of 13, I've been a lifelong advocate for students, driven to get better outcomes for them. I lean in, I listen, I learn, and I lead with impact. My time has been spent working beside local leaders in nearly every sector of our county to make our county better and stronger. As a result, I'm humbled by the nearly 200 individuals who have stepped up to formally support me in this race for county superintendent. If we want success for all children, we must keep them safe, provide high-quality early learning that includes early assessment and support, and provide every student the education and skills needed to be successful in today's world. To truly close the achievement gap, we must target our resources for our youngest learners. High-quality early learning is the most impactful way to support student success. Additionally, our education system should graduate students who have mastered the skills necessary for future success. I want to expand career education so every student, whether attending college or not, has a pathway to the best jobs of today and tomorrow. Finally, nothing is more important than safe and inclusive schools. With my experience and demonstrated leadership in this area, I am uniquely qualified to lead in San Mateo County at this time of great promise and challenge. As county superintendent, I'm here to serve you. Our partnership is crucial to our success. I want to learn more from you about how the County Office of Education can support our common efforts to serve all children. It is an honor to be here. There are big shoes to fill as we move forward, but I humbly ask you for your support to be our next County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you.
I'd like to thank both the candidates for coming on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. The League of Women Voters workers who have been here and put this together and made it run. And all of you for coming, also on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I'm going to give you some homework. One is stop by the table on the way out and get the information that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. 2 is vote in June, and 3 is vote in November. Thank you all.